All right, let's do this. Ready for a deep dive. Today we're tackling landed costs.
Oh.
Yeah, those sneaky little expenses that seem to pop up when you're sourcing products, especially from overseas,
Especially from a place like Vietnam, right?
especially from a place like Vietnam.
Yeah.
You sent over some fascinating material on this, and I gotta say, I'm kind of excited to dig in and see what we find.
It's a topic that really trips people up,
Ah,
even seasoned entrepreneurs sometimes,
yeah.
because it's so easy to just get fixated on that initial price tag you see from the supplier
Oh, yeah.
and totally forget about the entire journey that that product takes to actually get to your doorstep?
Oh, that's so true. That's like thinking you scored a super cheap plane ticket,
Right.
but then forgetting about like the baggage fees, the airport snacks,
Oh, yeah.
the taxi to your hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden your cheap trip isn't so cheap anymore.
Exactly.
So is that kind of what we're talking about here with landed costs?
It's exactly like that. It's the difference between just seeing the tip of the iceberg
Oh,
and realizing there's this massive chunk hidden beneath the surface.
whoa.
Landed costs really represent all the expenses involved in getting your product from that factory floor
Okay.
all the way to you, ready to sell.
So wait, if I'm getting this right,
Uh-huh.
miscalculating these costs could mean that I'm actually selling my product at a loss
Hmm.
without even realizing it.
Potentially, yeah.
Ouch.
That's why this deep dive is so important.
Yeah.
We're going to break down each of those hidden costs
All right.
so you can accurately price your product and protect your profits. Nobody wants their business to, sink because they missed a crucial part of the equation.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
So, all right, you've convinced me landed costs are officially on my radar.
Great.
So where do we even start?
Well, I think we should start by just mapping out the different stages of your product's journey.
Okay.
So imagine that little widget, fresh off the production line in Vietnam.
Okay.
What are all the steps that it needs to take before it lands in your warehouse, ready to be sold?
Okay, well, first off, there's the cost of the product itself, right?
Yeah,
Like, that seems pretty straightforward.
it seems that way.
Yeah.
But even product costs can have some hidden layers.
Okay, like what?
Well, think about things like, maybe fluctuations in raw material prices,
Mm-hmm.
changes in the manufacturing processes.
Oh. Oh.
Even something as simple as the type of packaging used can affect the final price you pay.
So even before that widget leaves the factory,
Right.
there are potential cost surprises.
Absolutely.
Okay, note to self.
Yeah.
Due diligence is key,
Hmm.
even on that initial quote.
Always.
All right, so let's say our widget is all packaged up,
Yep.
ready to ship.
Yeah.
The next cost we're hitting is shipping itself.
Right.
And I'm guessing this is where things can get a little
Interesting.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the materials you sent mentioned air versus ocean freight.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I'm assuming that's a pretty big decision point, right?
It's huge.
Okay.
Yeah, and it really depends on a few factors.
Okay.
Air freight. Think of it like a speedboat.
Okay.
Fast.
Okay.
But expensive.
Makes sense.
If you're dealing with small, high-value items,
Yeah.
or you absolutely need things delivered super quickly,
Okay.
it might be worth that extra cost.
But I'm guessing ocean freight is more like,
Like a cargo ship.
yeah, like a cargo ship.
Yeah.
Slow and steady,
Mm-hmm.
but more cost effective in the long run.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Especially for larger shipments, especially if you're not in a rush.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind,
Yeah.
even with ocean freight,
Wow.
you got to factor in stuff like fuel surcharges, port fees,
Oh,
potential delays, things like that.
so there's that trade-off between speed and cost
Hmm.
with a few extra variables thrown in for good measure.
Yeah.
It sounds like choosing the right shipping method is a strategic decision in itself.
It really is.
Okay, so what happens once our little widget reaches our shores?
Ugh. Then it enters the wonderful world of customs.
Oh boy.
We got to contend with customs duties and taxes.
Duh.
And this is often where people get really tripped up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
These are fees that your government imposes
Right.
on goods imported from overseas.
Customs, yeah.
Yeah.
I have heard some horror stories about like unexpected fees and delays.
You and everyone else.
Yeah. Any tips for navigating that bureaucratic maze?
The key is research.
Okay.
Knowing the specific HS code for your product
Okay.
is absolutely crucial.
Okay.
That code's going to determine the duty rate you have to pay.
Okay. HS code, adding that to the to-do list.
Yes.
So we've got product cost, shipping, and customs.
Mhm.
What else is lurking in these hidden costs?
Don't forget insurance.
Oh, right.
It's like this extra layer of protection that can really save you from a major headache down the line.
Okay.
Just imagine if your widget gets damaged in transit or even worse, lost at sea.
Right.
Without insurance, you're going to be stuck footing the bill.
Okay, yeah, that's a risk I don't want to take.
Right.
Is there anything specific I should know about insurance when sourcing from Vietnam?
Yeah, make sure your policy covers door-to-door transportation.
Okay.
Think of it as like comprehensive coverage
Oh.
from the moment your widget leaves that factory in Vietnam
Okay.
until it gets to your destination.
Okay, so that's door-to-door coverage.
Yep.
Got it.
Things can happen at any point in that journey, and you just want to be fully protected.
Absolutely.
Right.
So is that the last hurdle for our intrepid little widget?
Almost there.
Okay.
But there's one final category of expenses that can sometimes really catch people off guard.
Oh, what's that?
Miscellaneous fees.
Uh-oh, miscellaneous fees.
It's a whole mix of smaller charges that can add up surprisingly quickly.
Okay, like what?
Things like handling fees at the ports,
Mm-hmm.
warehousing costs,
Okay.
inspection fees,
Okay.
even fluctuations in currency exchange rates can hit you there.
Yikes. Yeah. Those small charges can really make a dent in your profit margin if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've got product cost, shipping, customs, insurance, and miscellaneous fees. It's a lot to keep track of.
It is.
How do we actually put all of this together
Yeah.
and calculate the total landed cost?
Well, that's what we're going to cover next.
Okay.
So get ready.
Right.
It's time to do a little math.
Okay, I'm grabbing my calculator.
Okay.
Let's crunch some numbers.
Let's do it. So the formula for landed cost,
Okay.
it's actually pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It's basically just the sum of all those costs we've been talking about.
Okay.
So landed cost equals product cost plus shipping fees
Mm-hmm.
plus customs duties
Yeah.
plus insurance
Okay.
plus those miscellaneous charges.
Okay, so it's like adding up all the receipts from your shopping spree.
Exactly.
But this time it's a global shopping spree
Yes,
for
exactly.
your business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's put this formula into action. Use a real-world example.
Yeah, let's do it.
Your materials actually had a sample calculation in there.
Perfect.
So let's walk through that together.
I love seeing how these things actually work in practice.
Yeah.
Okay, so the example, our little widget
Yep.
has a product cost of $5 per unit.
Right. And they factored in $1.50 for shipping costs.
Go.
Assuming ocean freight for this one.
Okay.
Then we've got 75 cents for customs duties and taxes, 25 cents for insurance,
Okay.
and another 50 cents
Okay.
for those miscellaneous fees.
All right, time to put my calculator skills to the test.
All right.
$5 plus $1.50
Yeah.
plus 75 cents plus 25 cents plus 50 cents.
What do you get?
That gives us a total landed cost of $8 per unit.
Exactly.
Wow, $8.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm a little shocked by how much those extra costs add up.
Yeah, it can be surprising.
It's like more than a 50% increase from that original price.
It often is.
Yeah.
And that's why
Okay.
understanding landed costs is absolutely crucial, because it can really mean the difference between making a profit and just breaking even.
Or even, worse,
Losing money.
losing money, yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah, this really highlights like why doing your research
Yeah,
and factoring in all of those hidden expenses is so important.
absolutely.
Okay, so I'm curious,
Yeah.
is there like a ballpark percentage
Uh-huh.
or a rule of thumb that people can use to like estimate landed costs?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's no magic number
Okay.
that applies across the board.
Okay.
Landed costs can vary so much depending on the product,
Yeah.
the country of origin,
Okay.
the shipping method you're using,
Yeah.
all sorts of factors.
Okay, so each product in each sourcing scenario
Right.
is unique.
Pretty much.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
But there are ways to at least get a rough estimate.
Okay.
Early on, you can research typical shipping rates from Vietnam. You can look up customs duty rates based on those HS codes.
Yeah.
And then factor in a buffer for those miscellaneous expenses.
Okay, so it takes a little legwork up front,
Mm-hmm.
but getting that early estimate can save you a lot of headaches down the line.
For sure.
All right, so you mentioned that landed costs can vary.
Yeah,
Does that mean there are ways to actually, like, reduce those costs
absolutely.
to improve our profit margins?
There are definitely strategies you can use to kind of tame those landed costs.
Okay, give me some good news.
Yeah.
How can we make this whole sourcing thing less daunting
Yeah.
and a little more profitable?
One of the smartest things you can do is to partner with a reliable freight forwarder.
Okay. Freight forwarders.
Yep.
I've heard the term.
Uh-huh.
I'm a little fuzzy on what they actually do.
Basically, think of them as your logistics gurus.
Okay.
They're going to handle all the intricate details of actually getting your products from Vietnam to your doorstep.
So they're the ones dealing with the headaches.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I don't have to.
Yep.
That sounds pretty appealing.
It can be a lifesaver.
How do I even know if I need a freight forwarder?
Yeah.
Especially when sourcing from Vietnam.
I mean, especially when you're sourcing from Vietnam, because their export procedures can be pretty complex.
Yeah.
Having that local expert on your side can be a game changer.
Okay.
They're going to know the ins and outs of the system.
Yeah.
They have those established relationships with shipping lines and customs officials.
Okay.
And they can just really help you avoid those costly delays and potential pitfalls.
It's like having a seasoned guide to navigate a foreign country.
Exactly. Yeah. They can make that journey so much smoother and more efficient.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It sounds like they can really streamline the process, especially if you're like new to sourcing from overseas.
Absolutely.
But how do you choose the right freight forwarder?
Right.
Any like red flags to watch out for?
First and foremost, look for experience.
Okay.
A proven track record, specifically in Vietnam.
Okay.
You want somebody who knows the terrain. Transparency is also crucial.
Okay.
You know, are they upfront about their fees?
Yeah.
Do they provide clear and consistent communication? And of course, you want to make sure they have all the necessary licenses and certifications.
I was like checking references before you hire someone.
Exactly.
Okay, so experience, transparency, and proper credentials.
That's it.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's helpful. So freight forwarders, check. What's our next weapon in the fight against these landed costs?
Don't be afraid to negotiate with your suppliers. You know, it's not just about finding the lowest price.
Okay.
It's about building that strong, mutually beneficial relationship with your suppliers.
I love that idea, but I'm not exactly a hard-nosed haggler.
I hear you.
Any tips for, like, negotiating effectively?
Yeah.
Especially when dealing with suppliers overseas.
I think building rapport is really key.
Okay.
Treat your suppliers with respect.
Yeah.
Communicate openly and honestly, and approach the negotiation as like a collaborative effort.
Okay.
You know, when you have that solid foundation of trust,
okay,
you're in a much better position to negotiate terms that are favorable to both sides.
So it's not about like playing hardball.
Right.
It's about finding that win-win.
Exactly.
I like that approach.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of like successful negotiations that actually helped reduce landed costs?
I've seen companies secure what are called volume discounts.
Okay.
By committing to larger orders.
Okay.
Kind of like buying in bulk at Costco.
Okay.
You know, the more you order, the lower the per unit price.
Makes sense.
Yeah, bigger orders means more business for the supplier,
Yeah.
so they're often willing to give you a break on the price.
Are there other negotiation tactics that can help?
Another option is to negotiate longer payment terms.
Oh, okay.
This can really help improve your cash flow. Give you a bit more flexibility. It's basically like getting a payment plan from your supplier.
So instead of paying everything up front, you can spread out those payments over time.
Exactly.
That could be huge.
That can be.
For like smaller businesses or startups.
For sure.
Who might have limited cash on hand.
Absolutely.
And sometimes even something as simple as asking for a better price can be effective.
You'd be surprised.
If you have that good relationship.
Right.
And you're placing those regular orders.
Exactly.
Okay, so clear communication, a collaborative mindset, and a willingness to ask.
It goes a long way.
Okay, that's really good.
So I think
what's our final tip?
Shipment consolidation.
Okay, shipment consolidation.
This is a simple but often overlooked strategy that can really save you some money.
Okay, so is that like when you order a bunch of stuff online? And it all comes in one big box?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of like a dozen separate packages?
Yeah.
You got it.
That's it.
Okay.
So instead of shipping all these small, frequent orders, try to bundle your shipments together into larger ones whenever possible.
Yeah.
This can really reduce your per unit shipping costs, as well as those annoying handling fees.
That sounds like a no-brainer.
It often is. But
okay. Is there ever a time when it might backfire?
There are a few things to consider.
Okay.
Like if your product is seasonal or has a really short shelf life, consolidating those shipments might mean some of your inventory is just sitting in a warehouse longer than you'd like.
So you have to like balance the storage cost with the savings on shipping.
Exactly.
It's all about finding that sweet spot.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's important to think about your cash flow, too.
Right.
Because consolidating those larger shipments might require a bigger upfront investment. So you got to make sure it works with your budget.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there are definitely some pros and cons to weigh. But overall, it sounds like shipment consolidation is a good strategy.
It can be.
For minimizing those shipping and handling fees.
For sure.
Okay, we've talked a lot about like the nuts and bolts of landed costs, the numbers, the formulas, the logistics. But I feel like there's a bigger picture here, something we haven't quite touched on yet.
What's that?
What about like the ethical considerations?
You're right.
Of sourcing, especially from a place like Vietnam.
Right. We can't just focus on the bottom line.
Yeah.
We need to think about the ethical and social implications.
Exactly. So how do landed costs actually factor into responsible sourcing practices?
Well, I think by understanding all those different elements that contribute to your landed cost, you can start to make more conscious choices. For example, you might opt for like slightly more expensive but sustainable shipping methods. Or you might choose to work with suppliers who are known for paying fair wages and providing really safe working conditions, even if their product costs are a little bit higher.
So it's not just about getting the cheapest price.
Right.
It's about understanding those trade-offs and making responsible choices that align with your values.
It's about finding that balance between profitability and ethical sourcing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's where understanding landed costs really becomes crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it empowers you to make those informed decisions that support both your business and the people.
And the planet.
And the planet.
Yeah.
Involved in actually making your product.
For sure.
Wow, that really adds another dimension to this whole conversation. It's not just about protecting your profits. It's about making responsible choices that have a positive impact.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another crucial point. That door-to-door insurance coverage.
Yes.
It's not just about protecting your investment.
Right.
It's about ensuring accountability throughout your whole supply chain. If something goes wrong, you want to know that everyone involved is covered.
Yes.
That there's a system in place to address any issues.
Absolutely.
So door-to-door coverage, it's not just about protecting your goods.
Right.
It's about promoting transparency.
Right.
And accountability from that factory floor all the way to your warehouse.
It really is about peace of mind.
Yeah.
Knowing you've taken steps to ensure responsible and ethical practices throughout that entire sourcing journey.
I gotta say, this deep dive has been like a total eye-opener.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I've gone from like 0 to 60.
Right.
On understanding landed costs. It's way more nuanced than I ever imagined.
It really is one of those things that seems simple on the surface, but once you start peeling back those layers, it gets a lot more complex.
Totally. And it's amazing how much we were able to cover just from the information you provided.
Absolutely.
This deep dive was just for you.
Yeah.
Based on what you sent us.
It was tailor-made.
But it feels like we only scratched the surface.
It did. The world of sourcing, it's constantly evolving, so you always got to stay curious.
Oh, for sure.
You know, keep learning.
Speaking of learning more,
yeah,
you mentioned HS codes earlier.
I did.
And how important it is to get those right.
Crucial.
The materials you sent mentioned something about different product types impacting customs duties.
Yeah.
What if you're sourcing something like unique?
Yeah.
Something that doesn't fit neatly into those standard categories.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It really highlights how important research is and seeking out expert advice when you need it. Especially if you're dealing with a unique product. It's worth talking to a customs broker or a trade expert who can help you, you know, classify your goods correctly, make sure you're paying the right duties.
So when in doubt, call in the experts.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, unpacking all those hidden costs.
A lot.
Exploring different strategies for minimizing their impact. Any final words of wisdom for our listener?
Ooh, final words of wisdom as they embark on their sourcing journey. I think just remembering that knowledge is power. When it comes to sourcing, the more informed you are, the better decisions you can make.
Absolutely.
For your business.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
You know, seek out resources. connect with other entrepreneurs who are doing this too.
Well said. And for anyone listening who wants to dive even deeper into this topic, we've included a link to that podcast you mentioned in your materials.
Uncle Perfect.
It seems like a great resource.
It is.
For anyone who wants to learn more about responsible and effective sourcing practices.
Absolutely. I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah. And remember, sourcing from overseas can be really rewarding and profitable.
Absolutely.
But you got to go into it with your eyes wide open.
For sure.
Understanding those landed costs is the foundation.
It is.
For a successful and sustainable sourcing strategy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. So until our next deep dive.
Yes.
Happy sourcing, everyone.